see you guys in the dark.
When I was in high school, I wasn't a very hardworking student. I wasn't a troublemaker, but I was an incredibly lazy girl, working just the minimum so that my parents wouldn't get angry at me. I've always had some kind of easiness regarding school and never really knew what it truly meant to make any effort. So I spent all my classes drawing on my copyboards without many consequences. My junior year math teacher, who is seen by everyone as an uptight but very caring, was pretty upset about this, as were many of my previous teachers. He wanted me to work harder. I wasn't bad at math. I was around 13 or 14 out of 20. I'm French, so I'm assuming this has to be a B or a B minus. But sometimes my grades were very low. During a teacher parent meeting, he told my mom that I was wasting my capacity, that it was irritating how much I was lazy. My mom ended up agreeing with him, and that she wouldn't blame him for pushing me harder or for punishing me, especially if it made me work harder. And from this day on, he did exactly what he was told. In every single math class, he would always question me first before everyone else, was always sitting next to me when we were doing exercises. During the test, he was always telling me, "You can do it. You can do it." It made me feel incredibly uncomfortable because of at this age, no one wants to be the attention's focus. My classmates started to realize that my math teacher was a little obsessed by me and were teasing me a lot about this. The last class before Christmas break, the math teacher threw a little surprise Christmas party. It was pretty nice. He gave us chocolate and some mock champagne. We've had a lot of fun. During the party, he poured me another glass of this mock champagne, telling me that I deserved it because I was doing much better. It's true, though, because of all the attention I was forced to work, so my grades were around 15 to 16, which I think is like having an A minus, or maybe an A. I accepted it. But I didn't drink it entirely. I have diabetes, and already had too much chocolate as it was. During the next class, I was feeling very bad. I almost fainted and finished my last day of school before Christmas in the nurse's office. At that time, I wouldn't even think that it was because of the alcohol free champagne. I thought it was due to my diabetes. But I indeed had too much chocolate, even if it didn't look like my usual crisis. A few weeks later, my class threw some kind of charity event. It was a class project, and we were very proud. In my country, we don't have proms, so it's our occasion to wear pretty formal clothes and to dance together. My math teacher was invited, and he was helping some of the boys to tend to the bar. He served me an alcohol free cocktail, but before I could drink it, a classmate of mine, Flora, poured some vodka in it, even though it was forbidden to bring alcohol into school. I was angry because of my diabetes. I couldn't drink alcohol, so I told her that she would just have to throw the cocktail away. I fought her hard enough that she decided to throw it away. I'm kind of wondering if she even drank it herself. The event ended pretty badly because of the alcohol Flora had brought. Some guys were getting very drunk. They started breaking things, and Flora passed out because of all the alcohol that she had. This ended the event. Flora had been admitted to the hospital because her coma was pretty severe, and then we spent the next day being lectured by all the teachers of the school. She got expelled from school, and she never went again. I was very upset with her about this. Because of this, every event was now forbidden, and our project was a failure. We gave a very bad image to the association we were raising funds for, so I kind of ghosted her and never asked if she was ever doing any better. Now I feel bad about this, but at that time I was pretty immature. But because of that, I'll never know if she was ill because of the alcohol or because of my cocktail. A few weeks later, I had failed my math test. It had been a long time since I failed a math test, and my math teacher was very angry. He yelled at me in front of everyone, saying how much of a disappointment I was, that I was hopeless, that I could just end up living in a cardboard box under a bridge. Something was off about it. I was feeling it. He had a very weird look in his eyes. It chilled me, and I couldn't help it. I just started crying. He calmed down a bit, said he would give me an hour of detention, during which I will copy all of my lessons. I was a little surprised because normally detention is for bad behavior, not for bad grades. But I was a little relieved because it was just a small punishment. My parents would never know. Indeed, I lived kind of far from my high school, and there were only one bus every single night between the high school and my home, which was around 5 p.m. Because of that, even when I finished at 4 p.m., I would have to go home before 5. And when I had detention around that time, my parents would never know. But then, when he officially gave me my detention hour, he said that he wanted me to personally present during my detention hour. and that the only possible hour was during 5 and 6 p.m. I was really nervous because I would have to tell my parents to come get me at 6, and they would know everything. Since I wasn't a troublemaker, I had planned to go to the detention hour, but during the day, my friends and I had talked a lot about it, and I was feeling more rebellious because of the sensation of being supported by my friends. So I decided not to tell my parents that I was in detention, and that one of my friends would come pick me up at 6 p.m. and then drive me home. At 5, when heading towards the detention room, I was angry. I was mumbling to myself that it wasn't fair to be in detention because of one and only one bad grade. When I arrived in front of the detention room, I realized that I was the only one waiting. Then suddenly I realized I would be the only student in detention, alone with my math teacher, who was a little obsessive, and it was getting dark outside. It was during late winter, early spring, so the night was really early. It was a big nope for me, and I saw him coming. I had panicked. I said something like, "Sorry, I have an emergency that I have to go to now. I'll email the school for rescheduling my detention hour," and then I ran off. He started to yell at me that I had to obey him and go to detention, that he would also call my parents. At this moment, I really didn't care. I sprinted towards the bus stop, and then I caught my bus in the terminal. I was afraid that he would have called my parents, so when I arrived, I was shaking. But my parents greeted me normally, so I had assumed eventually that he would call them. He never came back the next day, nor the next week. Eventually, I learned that he had quit his position. A shrink had came for an hour to ask us if we wanted to talk about the math teacher, but nobody knew what was going on with him. We didn't have much to say, and the shrink had left, and we never heard from him again. All the way up until a few months ago, I became a teacher. How ironic, given my laziness when I was a teen. And one day, chatting with my coworker, I mentioned his name, talking about my weird, bizarre math teacher, and how I skipped a detention hour, and one of my oldest coworkers went very pale hearing his name. In fact, a few days after the detention incident, my math teacher was arrested for having downloaded a few pedopornography videos from the dark web, and some kind of snuff videos starring children and young teens. Maybe detention hour was just a detention hour, and I could have gone out without having any problems. But now I will never know, and will always wonder what would have happened if I stayed there, or didn't catch my bus on time. When I was 9, I had asked my dad for piano lessons. My dad was a professional musician, so he knew a pianist, and set me up to start getting classes. Scott was a good teacher, patient and compassionate. I learned a lot from him. He was also a very fun guy. He would regularly have weekend bonfires and invite our family over. So the adults would drink beer and play rock music, and the kids would roast marshmallows and run ourselves ragged on his property. My dad had 3 daughters, me the oldest, and was seeing a woman who also had 3 children. So every weekend there were 6 of us. Scott loved to play with us. We always thought that he was the funnest guy for taking time out to hang out with us, all between about 5 and 12. He would let us dress him up and pounce on him, and he loved to tickle us. You're seeing red flags go off now, but we didn't at the time. We liked that an adult was having fun with us. As I started getting a bit older, the oldest girl at 11 or 12, I started to notice Scott was showing me favoritism. He loved when I drew him pictures. He liked having me on his lap when he took all the kids in turn a short ride around the block on his motorcycle. I had got the longest ride. He took me all the way to a Target and bought me a dress that was way too short, showed my legs off. When we were sunbathing at a beach party once, I could feel him staring at me through his sunglasses. And here's the thing that creeps me out the most. Back then, I loved the attention. I was in consistent competition with 5 other kids, the older, rowdy, teenage boys, and the younger girls. I didn't have any problems from my dad and his fiancée, so I didn't need any special attention. But Scott paid attention to me. It made me feel mature and interesting. At some point, he and my dad had drifted apart. The band got a new pianist, and we stopped going to his bonfires. I had already quit taking piano when I was 11 and started learning the clarinet instead. I didn't really think about it after a while. Then one day when I was 16, my dad called me and my sisters in for a family meeting. Scott was in jail. He had been arrested for having sex with a 12-year-old girl. He made her promise not to tell her parents, but she did anyways. Dad said he started to suspect that Scott wasn't someone he should have his family around, especially when he had bought me that short dress. Suddenly it all made sense. I didn't know how to feel about this. Nothing had happened to me, but he thought about it. Had I wanted him to think about it? Me, a 12-year-old girl desperate for an adult's approval. Was I actually surprised when I heard he had been arrested? Now, as an adult, my sense of sexuality is pretty messed up, and I have little trust in people. I wonder what of this is related to him, if any at all. Occasionally, I'm still devastated that someone I'd like so much could have been thinking such evil things about me and my developing body.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.